Welcome to Easy Style with Sammy. I'm your host, Sammy Bedell Mulhern. Each episode, I invite a friend, family member, colleague, or just someone I've met on this journey called life to come and share their personal style and approach to business, parenting, life, and everything in between. You'll hear motivational and inspirational stories that will help you refine and build your own personal style. Remember, style is easy when it comes from within. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Easy Style with Sammy. Today, my guest is Jill Harms. Jill, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I look forward to this.
Yeah, well, and we've known each other off and on throughout the years. I think recently reconnected again on a few projects from, you live in the same town that I'm born and raised in. So I'm really excited to have you here and kind of share your insights on value-based workplaces and kind of supporting our community. So I appreciate you taking the time. Why don't you kind of introduce yourself to everybody and let them know a little bit about you?
Yeah, so I'm Jill Harms. I own and operate Blink Marketing here in the Iowa Great Lakes, actually right on busy Highway 71 here in Milford. My background spans quite a range. I spent 17 years in corporate marketing, working for a number of different companies, really good companies, from Sather's Candy Company to Schwann's Food Service to Pure Fishing, where I spent my last 10 years in corporate marketing, and all were just amazing opportunities full of education and experiences that I know I couldn't get anywhere else. So very much grateful that I had those opportunities, and I know that has been part of what has brought me to where I am today. Then went on to open Blink Marketing 14 years ago, and here we are in Milford, Iowa, and still making it. And I was not sure that I could do this, but my life was changing. My priorities were changing. My kids were getting busier, and my position at Pure Fishing was taking me out of town more than what I wanted to be. I was traveling pretty much every week, and my kids, I think, needed me, more of a presence of me at home. So I chose to walk away from that great position I had and open Blink Marketing, because at that point there really wasn't an agency per se in our town, in our area, not the agencies that I knew of in terms of, a full service marketing agency. And so I decided, hey, I'm going to try this thing. I don't know if it's going to work. I told my husband, be prepared, because I'm not going to have an income for a while. So, we have to be ready for this. And he kind of knew this was coming because, 10 years prior to that, I had said, I'd like to do this someday. Didn't know if I would ever take the jump to actually do it. But because of circumstances, it was time. And I said, hey, I'm not getting younger. Let's just try it. And if it doesn't work, I can always go get a job somewhere else. So I did. And so here we are 14 years later. And it's been a great experience. Yes, it's allowed me to manage my work-life balance with having kids getting older, and my husband who, farms, and, he's a half hour away. So it just made our life better, I think, and easier. And I was able to pick my kids up from school at the end of the day and hear all the stories that I know I was missing out on before that. So, so it's been great.
I did not realize that we have a very similar story in how we started our business, and very similar bosses. So I was working for my dad in Oregon. You were working for my dad at Pure Fishing.
Yes.
Similarly, I left, working for him because, well, number one, working with family is hard, and we wanted to be, father-daughter first, and stop talking about work at every single dinner table, but also same, like the schedule and, being home for the kids. And that's when I started my business. So we have a very similar story and path to that. I love that.
Yes, we do. And in fact, your dad, I told him, I think, 3 or 4 years into working for him, we were on a trip, and he, of course, as he would normally, he's like, "What do you want to do, Jill? What do you want to do with your life?" And at the time, I didn't flinch. I just started going into, oh, well, I want to run an agency. I want to have my own agency. I know I can do that. And as I'm talking about it, I realized, wait a minute, I'm telling the owner of this company I'm going to leave his company, which didn't dawn on me at the time. But anyway, I did. And so didn't know if it would happen. And, here I am.
Yeah. So. Well, and I love that. So, when you take different pieces of each place you've been, right? There's good and bad in everything, even running your own business. So, as you kind of thought about, okay, well, now I'm going to do this. This is who I get to be, who I want to be. I get to show up how I want to show up. Like, was that completely terrifying to show up and be like, it's just Jill Harms as the face of this. You can't hide behind anything else. And how important was it for you to really kind of bring in specific elements about who you are into kind of who you work with and how you showed up for the community?
Yeah. So, gosh, so much in that question. When I started Blink Marketing, I had in my mind the ideals of what a true marketing agency is and should be. Of course, working with some phenomenal agencies out of, New York, Chicago, Houston, you name it, Minneapolis, just some really, really good agencies. And I also saw the best of the best and the worst. And so I knew kind of, where the sweet spot was. And so that's what helped me kind of form, first of all, what kind of an agency I was going to be and what we were going to stand for. And personally, I felt like I had these 17 years of professional leadership development, which I knew was going to help me elevate my business very quickly, to establish myself in my own community. Mm-hmm. Even though I was here, I wasn't present. I was a person in management working for Pure Fishing at the time, and that's how people saw me, as this leader within that company, but they didn't know me. So one of my goals was to ingrain myself in my community. I felt like, I didn't know lots of my kids' friends yet or their parents. I wanted to be ingrained in their life. And I knew part of that also meant, getting involved in the community. And I think with any new business, if people don't know who you are, why would they ever use you, right? So it's also a marketing tool where I needed people to know who I was outside of Pure Fishing. They knew I was at, marketing management at Pure Fishing, but they didn't know anything beyond that. So it was important for me to establish Blink, first of all, as, a professional agency that does really good, high quality work. Yeah. But that I also had the background and experience to guide people in the right direction. I think with my business, as I started to hire individuals, so I have graphic designers and I have, web designers, and as my staff grew, I also wanted to make sure I didn't lose the human element. Yeah. I do think as you work for bigger companies, you do become a number. As hard as I'm sure the companies I work for tried not to do that, you still become a number. And there were decisions made that I don't think always brought in the human factor. So with everything we do here, it has to feel good and it has to be doing good. If it isn't, we're not going to do it. And also as it relates to relationships with clients, I told my staff, I won't take a client just for the sake of the dollar. I want it to be right. And I don't want anybody to ever make you feel bad about your work. So we're going to make sure our clients work with us and we're a good fit for each other. And, In my past, that was never an option. I had to work with all types of difficult personalities. So I think moving into my own business, it was, okay, now I get to choose who I work with, and I get to get up in the morning and decide what we're going to do that day. And I think all of those things were important to me in starting this business. So,
well, and I think working for those larger companies, it kind of allows you also to, like, I think, dream a little bit bigger. Like, I think that's where in smaller towns, a lot of people struggle with, well, there's only so many people here, or there's only, like, those limitations become super obvious. So what is it like for you? Like, is it exciting for you to take this, like, go from working at a company that's international, and you're taking all of these skills, you have all this training, but yet you're still in this smaller community, to be able to bring kind of that experience to small local businesses and really help them thrive in ways that they probably couldn't even imagine they could do. Like, what is that like for you? And do you get a lot of pushback from people? Like, no, we can't do that. Like, how do you kind of work through all of that?
Yeah. So, and that invigorates me. I mean, it gets me going. It is scary to walk away from that kind of environment to just my own, not having all my support systems in place, but it's also exciting to know that I can change people, I can change businesses, and I have the opportunity to do that. So yeah, working for an international company, I quickly learned that as I started to work with small businesses here in my area, I was so far away from where their mindset was at. I had to regroup myself and I don't want to say dumb it down, but I had to figure out, how do I communicate with them when they have no idea what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And that would be with just about everything that we did. And so I was, in essence, every time I was meeting with a client, I felt like I was teaching them and training them, and it was good. I mean, it's exciting because it opens up new doors for you, and most people see that as, okay, well, she's an expert in her field, and she's bringing us, things, education that we didn't have before, that we didn't know before. The downside of that, of going from big business to dealing with mom and pop shops, is, not everybody cares. So not everybody wants to go through the steps it takes to get to a really good product. And not everybody is willing to pay for that. So my job became very challenging to, how do I explain to these business owners that there's value in moving through our steps methodically and logically to get to the final result. So your brand, for example, your name is the most important marketing element you have. And if you don't take time to thoroughly figure out what the right branding objective is, we're not going to get to where you want to be. And it's a process. It's not just wake up in the morning, here's my name.
Yeah.
There's a process to going through it. And so the challenge for me was, really figuring out my sales pitch. And I am a marketer, right? I didn't sit in front of all of these salespeople through those, years of corporate marketing. I did go on sales calls to assist the salespeople, but I wasn't the one making the pitch. So I had to really sit down and start to think about, what's my tipping moment? What's my, automatic why to the buy? What's going to make them say, yeah, we need to do that? And I think as I became better at my storytelling and sharing with them what's working over here with this client, it helped them to believe in what I was preaching to them and understanding it. So
yeah, I feel you there 100%. Because I think a lot of times in marketing, it's like the perception of what I think works versus what we know works, and like pulling people through the right thing, can be extremely challenging. And yes, you're speaking my language. This is why whenever we talk marketing, we always have a good time because we feel the same things about
Yes,
clients and potential clients. But I want to touch on kind of the different phases of life. And you mentioned really wanting to switch and start your own thing because of the needs of your kids. And I feel like as a mom, and this, I think dads are feeling this too. Like I know my husband has gone through these transitions because he used to be a stay-at-home dad. Now he's working. Like we all kind of go back and forth. So I don't want to label it as just moms, but that balance of like, how do I actually make this choice right now? Like how, was there any part of it where you were like, I'm giving up a piece of me to come back here and do this? Or like, as you're navigating through all of these changes, like how did you make that decision so that you felt good about it, your husband felt good about it, as a family unit, you all felt good about it? Because I think that's extremely challenging when we're making career changes.
Yes, absolutely. And as much as you think you are prepared for it, I don't think you're ever completely prepared for moving from the corporate dynamic into your own silo environment. I'm a very social person. I love my alone time. I mean, my favorite time of day is my walk in the morning at 5:30, but I'm a social person by nature. I need to be around people. When you walk away to start your own business, it's you and just you. I mean, eventually I grew to have, a staff and employees, but I didn't start there. And I know that, in talking with my husband, I started out at home before I even opened my doors. But I know he told me and my friends told me that, we wouldn't have told you then, but we can tell you now that you were definitely in an area of depression. You were excited about starting your business, but you were not yourself.
Yeah.
And I think looking back on it now, I think it was that factor that I just wasn't surrounded by people anymore. And my identity became who I was at my last job at Pure Fishing, and that's what people thought of me. And so I sort of lost my identity along the way. But I also think once I started to realize what was missing in my life and in my business life, of course, I was trying to get new clients and, I'd have that interaction. But I think that's also why I went on to get involved in all the nonprofits I did, because those were my people.
Yeah.
Those were areas where I immediately knew, I want to go do that. And I want to help them. And I want to be surrounded by people that I know and trust. And I also did things that I had no experience with. I wasn't shy about jumping into that because I think people that start their own businesses tend to be a little bit more willing to take leaps of faith and just try new things. And as marketers, maybe that's how we work in our vibe. I think we figure it out along the way. Nobody has all the answers. So you just jump in and you try things and you figure out what sticks on the wall. But eventually, as you do that so many times, you start to get good at it because you know what's working and what's not working. So, it was a difficult time for me. It was short-lived, thankfully, but I got involved, in our school. I got involved in my church. I got involved at the park with the Y. I mean, you name it. I probably RAGBRAI. Yeah. I have many, many things that I did. I did the American Cancer Society fundraisers for a while. So, it was a time when, I wanted to be more present with my kids, but it was probably the busiest time in my life that I had because I was trying to start this business, run this business, and be a powerhouse volunteer, which I wouldn't change any of it. I felt that made me whole by participating and being a part of those groups. But then from the standpoint of having my own business in this small community, I also knew I had to perform as being part of these committees and boards that I was involved with. So I also put it on myself to do better and be better as I was working with each of them and helping them get to where they wanted to be. Yeah. So So it's been good, and it all has sort of made me who I am.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate the honesty because it's not easy. And I think that's why a lot of people sit with what they know, because I know this is what I know. This is the beast I know. And not that in your case, you were unhappy in your work environment or unhappy. A lot of times that's the push that gets people to make that change. But I love that, you just took stock of what was around you and you're like, you know what? I need to do something different to be who I want to be and show up for my kids the way I want to be. And you took a leap of faith almost. And so how has that kind of transitioned? Like how has that kind of changed the conversations or like the ways that you talk to your kids about what opportunities they might have or how they might navigate the work world and how they might want to take stock of their own values when they're making decisions about what they do?
Yeah. So with our kids, a work ethic was extremely important. Like that was non-negotiable. So both of our kids worked when they were in high school, basically as soon as they could work. And I know it got to a point where my kids were asking, when can I go work? So we must have done something right there. But I also think it was because they wanted their own money. We were not a family that just gave an allowance every month. You had to do chores or you had to do some kind of work in order for them to get that money. So they wanted to have control of being able to make their own money. So that kind of started them on that path. So I would say by the time they got to college, both of our children have pretty good work ethic. In that they know they want to make their way and be successful at whatever it was they were going to do. But along the way, I know my husband and I have talked at length about understanding that whatever you choose to do, you're going to be spending more time doing that than actually being at home with your family. So whatever you choose, make sure you love it. And make sure it's something that you can actually make a living at doing. So we had lots of deep conversations around that. And I think they saw, my husband farms and he has always wanted to farm, but we met in college and he graduated with a business degree, did not graduate with an ag degree, because I think he wanted to have options too if it didn't work out for him. And my kids knew that I had worked the corporate environment and then walked away to start my own business. They did understand that, there was this transition of, that income and then not having an income and then building your own income. But I think they saw it as a positive one because they understood then that, oh, mom's around now. And I coached every single one of my kids' teams, whether it was volleyball or basketball or soccer or softball, you name it, I did it. And I know they're grateful for that. So as they decided what they were going to do, both of them are heading into the agriculture field. And I think they grew up with a love for the farm. Like when we spend time at the farm, it's like their favorite thing to do because you're just outside and you're enjoying that, open space and getting dirty. I mean, they love playing in the dirt. So they both chose that path, but I think they're both very mindful of not getting caught in the trap of I've got a day in and day out job that I'm sitting, behind a desk and behind a computer without ever having room to breathe. So my daughter is graduating with a double degree or double major in agronomy and seed science. And she is actually has a soil certificate now with the federal government. So she wants to really focus on soil health and helping us grow better, stronger, and healthier crops. So she's off and moving to a job here shortly. And that is her passion. Like she loves to be outside. She loves to work with people, and she doesn't want to be in a lab because in her area, she could have gone down the path of being in a lab or something like that. But wants to be working with farmers. Austin also wants to be working with his hands. So he's going down the engineering path, but agricultural engineering. So not sure what he'll end up doing, if he wants to design equipment or what. But he's my kid that wants to have his own business someday.
Yeah.
So he's kind of more falling into my shoes in that area, where he started a boat cleaning business here in high school and did that for a few summers and is just now letting go of that. And I think he was inspired by the fact that he was able to control his destiny, so to say, in terms of how many boats he was willing to clean, how hard he was willing to work, and that he was rewarded for that based on how hard he was willing to work. So I would say, yeah, I don't know if there's anything specific that we did with our kids, but I know that we talked and preached to them quite often that whatever you choose to do, make sure you love doing it. Don't just do it because it's good money or, because it's the cool thing to do. Make sure it's something that you love and that you can at least make a living on.
Well, I think it's that creativity that you exude and just the openness in conversation. Kids seeing multiple different ways of making income growing up. I think, Gen Z and even younger millennials, the opportunities to make money are so much more unique than I think they ever were. But it's the ability to, or the, what's the word I'm looking for? The permission to be creative with where we want to go and look for what those options are, as opposed to only seeing one kind of linear path that we need to go down. So even like you said, in your most simplest way, maybe we didn't do anything. I think your example showed them that they can be creative and they can be open to whatever, and they can push for certain things. And that's emulated by example.
Yeah. And I think the reason, people, when I go to classrooms or whatnot to do a talk or talk about, being an entrepreneur, people often ask, did you always want to do this? And my answer is no.
Yeah.
I had no idea growing up that I would ever own my own business or that I even wanted to be an entrepreneur. I was born and raised in a very traditional household. My dad was a superintendent. My mom stayed at home with 5 kids. When we graduated, it was expected that you would do the safe thing and you would just go get a job somewhere and work for somebody because that's the safe thing. Never in a million years would I have thought I would own my own business. And it's not that my parents didn't support me, but they were very concerned when I walked away from a stable job.
Yeah, you're growing up in a different time,
Right. Yes. And I have realized, even with my own kids, as much as I want stability for them, I too have to make sure that, let them go and soar and figure it out. If it doesn't work, that's the great thing, is you just shift courses and do something else. And, obviously you have to make a living, but then you figure out, if I want to build something, how do I make sure I have cash on the side to allow me to still live while I'm busy building it? So, and, for me, I was fortunate that I was married, right? So we had 2 incomes in our household. So I at least could allow my husband to, help us along while I was building the business. Not everybody has that situation. So you have to fill in that gap with something that provides that cash flow.
Well, I think, a lot of inspiration here. We're going to wrap this up with the 5 questions I always ask. But I want to say, really just touch on, if you're listening to this, just the key things of how can we show up for our kids and help them live their best lives, but also just reiterating that you said, you didn't always know you wanted to be an entrepreneur. And, maybe it's not that you want to be an entrepreneur. Maybe it's that you want to go for that next promotion that you think you're not qualified for, or it's that you want to get involved with an organization that you think is out of your league, whatever that might be. You're never too old or too late in your career to make that shift and go for it. And I think that's what you're the kind of the big message that people can take away from this and go for kind of what you really want, even if you don't know what it is yet,
Absolutely. Yeah. I was, like I say, almost 17, 20 years into this before I walked away and opened my own business. Yeah. And for me, that was the right path based on how I was raised. I needed that stability of, not stability of income necessarily, but stability of knowing.
Expectation. Yeah.
Yes, justification, knowing that I can do this, knowing that I had enough experience and education behind me, so that I could show up and tell my clients, yes, I can help you. And I don't want to show up as a fraud. I mean, I want people to think that, I've got something to offer. And that's the hardest part as an entrepreneur, is convincing people, right, that you do have something to offer. So that part of it was important for me. For my kids, if they want to go down that path, it's going to be different for them. And I think it is almost with everybody. Your story is always a little bit different, but most importantly, I think you just have to be passionate and persistent. And every day you get up and it's hard, you just have to push through that and keep going. And it may be hard. Expect that it's going to get harder at some point. It's a constant evolution, because as businesses grow, there's always going to be a new challenge ahead of you. And, when you have good days and things are going really, really well, you have to celebrate that and make sure you do that with your whole staff, so that you don't let those days go by, because there's other hard days ahead. That is probably something my kids aren't aware of right now, that if they choose to go down the path of starting their own business, that, I don't know that they've ever had a tough day to the degree I've had a tough day.
No.
Like, I think they're just growing up in a generation where things just haven't been that tough. So I think you have to be able to look inside yourself and know that no matter how hard it gets, I have to keep going. And I do think that's a type of person. Like, you have to know inside yourself, can I do this? And am I willing to put through the sacrifice it's going to take to do it? And that means getting yourself up every single day, getting dressed, no matter what. Even if you don't have anything on that schedule that day, you make it up and you keep going. And every single day will add up to success along the way. It's just persistence.
So good. That's just the perfect soundbite for the whole for the whole episode. I love that pep talk. Okay, so 5 questions that we ask every guest. You already mentioned that you're always learning, you're always testing, but where do you go, or what's a resource that you have when you're looking for either personal or business development or growth?
Yeah, so I, of course, follow some blogs, and I have a couple different consulting groups that I've met along my way, and I'm on their email newsletter list. So I'm constantly reading those when they come into my inbox. I do follow some marketing experts like James O'Connor, who I think is amazing, and Seth Godin, who's amazing.
Love him.
Those people inspire me, because they think about things differently than I do. I think it helps me to kind of change my brain and think about things differently. So I do read newsletters to keep myself going. Of course, I've got my industry publications that I flip through now and again, but I think that's where most of my inspiration comes from.
I love that. Would you consider yourself to be introverted or extroverted?
Yeah, I was thinking about that question. It's a good question because, as I mentioned before, I have to be around people. So I think most people would say that I'm extroverted, but I do have times where I really need my alone time. So there's times where I don't want to be the person answering the question all day long. I don't want to be the person talking all day long. I need my alone time. So I'm kind of a balance of the two, but I know I'm more than likely, I can't go too long without being around people. So I have to have my social, fill for the day.
Yep. What is one thing on your list, a goal, either personal or professional, for this year?
Oh, One thing on my list. So every year I have a goal for us as an agency to bring on a couple new retainer clients every year. And so that's just kind of standard for us. And those are difficult to get. So they're far and few. But I'm usually working on, kind of low hanging fruit, figuring out who really needs our help. So that would be from a professional standpoint where I'm headed. In addition to now that I have had the business for 14 years, I'm realizing it's all about me. And I'm the one doing all the business development. So I'm really focused on bringing somebody into our business that can take some of that weight off of me. Yeah. I have spent too much time now with all of it on my shoulders, and it's hard for me to get away. So I don't want a business and not be able to ever take a vacation. So so that's another professional and personal goal, quite honestly. But I want somebody dynamic. I want somebody that's an A-type personality, that's as motivated and passionate as what I am. And obviously, those are hard to find in a small town like this. So I'm just being patient until I find the right person. So personally, my oldest is graduating from college. Our youngest is just finishing his freshman year. So we're empty nesters, and we are figuring this out. It's kind of new for us to be empty nesters, and we just have newfound time. So personally, I think, we're going to try to travel maybe a little bit more than we have. Yeah. And when I say more than once a year. So on a personal standpoint, that would be my goal for the year.
So good. What is a piece of advice you've gotten from someone that has stuck with you?
Oh, I would say, and I'm not exactly sure who said this to me. It might have been Pat McGill. Always be yourself. And I think, as you're starting a business or managing a business and employees, I think we are always striving to be the perfectionist and, strong and, kind of leadership type. I think what has benefited me the most is I'm not good at that. I'm not good at being somebody else. I'm only good at being me. And that comes with flaws, and that comes with whoever I am. So, take it or leave it. And I think that mindset of, I'm not trying to win somebody over. I'm trying to help them be better at what they need or be better at what they're doing. So I think just being authentically yourself is the best possible advice that I've ever been given. And I think that's, personally and professionally, but I know professionally, sometimes people are afraid to let their guard down and just be their authentic self. But
you're looking for, you said this earlier, you're looking for partners. You're not looking for clients.
Correct. Yes. Correct. Yep. I spent years doing that, and it's just, we're spending so much time at our work and doing our work that I want to work with people that make me feel good at the end of a call, or that I know are going to support me at the end of the day. I don't want to work with people that are calling to, berate you or put you down in any way, shape, or form, nor do I want that for my employees. And I can tell you, I have fired 2 clients since I've owned my own business. And it's hard to make that call and hard to give up that income. But when you know you're not a good fit, when your personalities clash or don't have the same value set, that's when you know it's time.
Yep. I agree with that. What is a non-negotiable you have in your life?
Non-negotiable.
Besides your morning walks.
Yes, and I need those. For sure, trust. If you lose my trust, you're never going to get it back. And I am, to a fault, I'm a very trusting person. So I have learned to guard that moving forward. When I opened this business and I've just had a positive outlook on life, I think, in being raised the way I was raised, and wanting to help others and help communities. But I did not realize that inherently many people are selfish and are not looking out for your best interest. And it's always about what can you do for me instead of it being a two-way street. So that was a hard lesson for me. It was very eye-opening. I hadn't experienced that at any of my corporate jobs. And yeah, you just kind of, when you're have a small business, you learn that lots of people are not necessarily looking out for you. So trust is non-negotiable for me, and also to which clients I work with. That's an important element.
Yep. Nope. That's good. That's really good. And I think that's a small town, a harder lesson to learn in a small town too.
It is.
I'm the same way. Well, Jill, so many good words of inspiration, so much. Thank you for sharing and being open and honest with us here. If people want to learn more about you and Blink and just connect with you, how can they do that?
Blink26.com is our website, and I get all the emails from the website still. I have since day one, and I continue to be the person on the other end. So I'll respond to you if you choose to email me, but our phone number is on there as well. So happy to chat with anybody at any time. And yeah, just giving back. I guess the only thing that I didn't talk about is, giving back to your community, but that is so critically important as a small business, is to help other small businesses in your area, and together we make each other stronger. So
yes, I wholeheartedly agree. Well, thank you so much for being here today.
Yes, thanks for having me.
I hope that Jill inspired you to really go after what you want and make decisions in your life that are for what you want and what's going to be best for this stage in your life, whatever stage in life you are. Things change. Our circumstances change. The world changes around us. And that doesn't mean we have to keep doing the same thing we've been doing. So I really appreciate Jill coming on and being open and honest and sharing her experiences and how she's made changes and choices in her life. You can check out the show notes at easystylewithsammy.com/20 or watch the videos on YouTube at Easy Style with Sammy. Make sure you subscribe wherever you consume these episodes so you don't miss out on a single one. And thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you in the next one.